before we move on to today's part, first let's look at what you have learned on your previous lecture, right? We are now in the middle of chapter number 2. So we'll see so far what you have learned. So we are looking at marketplace analysis for e-commerce, which is our second chapter. So let's see what you have learned so far, right? Okay. Right. So we have already mentioned to you that now the purchasing behaviors have become very complex because customers are no longer just sticking to traditional methods, right? They are influenced by many more different points in the business world when they try to make a purchasing decision, right? So therefore, in order to find out the best way of how you can influence your customers, or how you can influence your customers to make a purchase, the business needs to be very, very careful. There are different things that a business needs to consider in order to induce or in order to influence their customers to make a purchase with them, right? So we learned that when it comes to B2B organizations, especially, usually in a traditional context, the businesses used to sell products through a network of distributors, right? Distributors in their own business network. But now with this concept of e-commerce, right, which has emerged, now the businesses have the opportunity of bypassing their intermediaries, right? Intermediary parties in between businesses such as distributors, right? Wholesalers and logistics companies likewise. Certain intermediaries, the businesses have the ability to bypass them, right? So moving on, we have also mentioned to you that when it comes to B2C organizations or business to customer organizations, right? These concepts such as e-retail sites, rather than just the physical retail sites which the customers were used to physically visit and buy the products. Now this concept of e-tailing or e-retailing has emerged, so that these e-retail destination sites are actually presented to the customers, and these sites give the opportunity to market the site owners their products through different online intermediaries, right? Such as social media. Sometimes some organizations use price comparison sites, right? Then different blogs likewise. Using these e-retail destination sites, the businesses have actually got the opportunity of marketing their products and services through these sites to their consumers as well in a B2C, or business to consumer context, right? So then we learned that in order to understand different elements of an organization's environment is a very important prerequisite that all business organizations must adhere to in the current context, right? Why? Because by analyzing their online marketplace, by analyzing their environment, the businesses can come up with sound business strategies, right? Very clear and sound digital business strategies, right? The businesses can come up with them if they have a good understanding of what is happening around their business organization, right? In terms of the physical environment maybe, and also in terms of the online environment, right? The organization should have a very good understanding therefore, right? And then we understood that the organizations should have a process to monitor the changes that happen within this environment, right? And we refer to that process as environmental scanning, if you all remember, right? So by doing this environmental scanning, we understood that the organizations can identify the opportunities and threats that emerge from the environment, as well as they can, when they have a good idea about these opportunities and threats, they can come up with better business strategies to counter these threats or to exploit these opportunities which are presented by the environment, right? So in this chapter, we hope to study different frameworks or models that you can use for analyzing the immediate marketplace or the micro environment, as we mentioned to you the other day. So this through this figure we discussed how the organization categorizes its micro environment and then the macro environment, right? I'm not going to define these two types once again to you. I hope you remember. So we understood how important it is for organizations to identify different players or different elements that are included within this micro environment and the macro environment of the organization, right? So we understood that there can be suppliers, the competitors, intermediaries, and even customers, right? Which are occurring in the immediate or the micro environment of the organization. When it comes to the macro environment, other factors such as international, social, country specific, and technology related factors can affect an environment. So an organization needs to have a very good understanding about all these micro and macro actors, right? So that we have already discussed. Right, so today we are going to start off with the concept called strategic agility, right? Strategic agility. So what do we mean by this term, strategic agility? So let's see what the first point says. The capacity to respond to these environmental opportunities and threats is commonly referred to as strategic agility. Now we understood that it is important for all organizations to understand the opportunities and threats that occur in the business environment, right? So if an organization has the ability or if an organization has the capacity to respond appropriately to these different opportunities and threats, we say that that particular organization has strategic agility, right? I hope you can understand that. So usually an organization who has strategic agility, right? Or if an organization is strategically agile, right? That means that organization can monitor the environment very well, right? They can monitor the environment, and based on the opportunities that and threats that emerge from the environment, they can come up with counter strategies. If there's a threat, they can come up with a strategy to minimize the threat or to overcome the threat. And if there are new opportunities emerging from the environment, the organization has the ability of coming up with new business strategies to exploit those opportunities for the betterment of the business, right? So how can they do this process very well? If they have a good process of monitoring the environment. If they have done the environmental scanning very well, and if they continue to monitor the environment continuously, then it is easy for organization to achieve strategic agility, right? So I hope you can understand that. Moving on, strategic agility is a concept strongly associated with knowledge management theory, right? And is based on developing a sound process for reviewing marketplace opportunities and threats, and then selecting the appropriate strategy options. Now, in knowledge management, we talk about how knowledge is gathered from different sources, right? How it is stored and how it is distributed within the organization, right? Knowledge can emerge from internal and external sources, right? So this concept of strategic agility, right? It is very strongly connected with this concept or this theory of knowledge management, right? So, and apart from that, it is also based on developing a good process for reviewing the marketplace, right? What sort of process should our organization have in order to review this marketplace and to find out the opportunities and threats that emerge in the marketplace from time to time, right? They should have a clearly defined process, right? And an organization should have a clearly defined process that facilitates them to identify these changes that continuously happen within the business environment, right? And after they review these opportunities and threats well, right? Then the strategic agility concept says that the organization has the ability of selecting the most appropriate options, strategic options, in order to respond to those opportunities and threats, right? So I hope that part is clear to you. So if you have any doubts, please feel free to ask them, right? Okay, so moving on. Now we are going to talk about a process for online marketplace analysis, right? A process that can be followed for online marketplace analysis for an organization. Right? Now the first point says, analysis of the online marketplace or market space is a key part of developing a long-term digital business plan or creating a shorter-term digital marketing campaign, right? So it is one of the fundamental stages to analyze your organization's online market space or market space, because we call it a market space now, because no longer we find it in only a physical location, right? So we also refer to this marketplace as market space, right, when it comes to a virtual environment. So it is very important, this analysis part is very important, because it forms the basis of developing the organization's longer term digital business plans, and also in organizations short term marketing campaigns, right? It is helpful both in coming up with good marketing campaigns for an organization, as well as in developing your long term digital business plans, right? Now for an example, if we consider the current nature of the business environment, what is going on at the moment now with the new this pandemic situation which has arisen in the all over the world. Now the business environment has changed, right? So some businesses have completely been shut out, and some businesses have been given more opportunities to conduct their business, and some businesses have changed the way they traditionally conducted businesses, right? So an organization is able to appropriately respond to these changes that happen within the business environment only if they do this analysis part well, right? So in coming up with their marketing campaigns, which enables them to reach out to consumers, which enables them to communicate about their products and services to consumers, right? And also in long-term digital business plans, such as, you know, what sort of channels that should be used in order to communicate about these products and services to the consumers, or what sort of products and services should we be delivering to the consumers based on the consumer preference, and also based on the changes that happen in the environment, right? So likewise, those changes should be very clearly identified by the organization. They have to clearly analyze the online behavior in the marketplace. What sort of new changes are occurring? What are consumers demanding more and more, right? What are the competitors in this online marketplace doing? Likewise, they have to be very alert on new trends, opportunities, and threats that occur in the online marketplace, right? Then completing a marketplace analysis helps to define the customer journeys. So customer journeys or flow of online visitors between search engines, media sites, and other intermediaries to an organization and its competitors. So once you complete a marketplace analysis, right, it helps to define the customer journey. What do you mean by a customer journey? Does anyone have an idea about what you mean by a customer journey? Yes? No idea. Right. So what do you mean by a customer journey? Usually we refer to a customer journey, the process or the steps that a customer usually goes through when purchasing a product or service, right? So when completing a marketplace analysis, it helps a business to define this customer journey, the process that a customer goes through in reaching out to products and services or in purchasing these products and services. Or else the flow of online visitors between search engines, right? So how do different online, the people who visit their website, so how do they switch between different search engines, right? What is the popular search engine, or how do these online users uh, get directed in between these different search engines or different media sites, right? And other intermediaries to an organization and its competitors, right? So an organization, when they do a marketplace analysis, one thing, it helps them to define the customer journey, right? So what is the advantage of having an idea of a customer journey? When the organization has an idea of the different stages that a customer goes through in buying a product or service, then they can come up with good strategies to influence those customers during each of those stages, right? So we will be talking about this in detail when we come to the marketing sections of this particular subject. But for now, just have an idea that the customer journey comes to different stages that a customer passes through in buying a product or service, right? So when an organization has an idea about this, they can come up with good strategies to influence them, to encourage them to during each of these stages, right? And also, if they have an idea about these different websites and different search engines that their customers or online users usually switch in between when they make a purchase or when they search for a product or service, likewise, then they can have an idea. Then once again, they can come up with strategies in order to uh, you know strategies that could respond to those different online behaviors of users, right? So likewise, for example, they can use popular channels that customers usually use to search for a product or to buy a product. What sort of platforms do they use? What sort of search engines are most popular? Or what sort of media sites do they usually refer to before buying a product? So this sort of understanding is very important for an organization when they come up with their marketing plans, right? And when they try to sell their products and services to consumers, right? Then moving on. Prospects and customers in an online marketplace will naturally turn to search engines to find products, services, brands, and entertainment. So what do you mean by prospects? Now, customers, we say our current customer base is there, and also there's a prospective customers or prospects. Now, prospects are future customers, right? There's a possibility of a person being a customer of our business in the future, not at the moment, but probably in the future, right? So those are prospects. And customers, our current customers and future customers who may or may not join with our organization. But the organization hopes that they will be our customers in the future, right? So prospects and customers in an online marketplace will naturally turn to search engines to find products, services, brands, and entertainment. So that is, I think, quite self-explanatory. Even you, if you want to, search for or to find certain products or services, you will usually first do a search on a popular search engine, right? Maybe like Google Chrome, something like that, right? So that is what has been explained here. So search engines act as a distribution system which connects searchers to different intermediary sites for different phrases. So when you search for a keyword in a search engine, usually we consider that as a distribution system. Why? When you type something on a search engine, you are directed to different intermediary sites. Say, for example, if you're searching for a laptop, then if you're searching for a laptop on Chrome or maybe Firefox, right? So you get directed to different suppliers who provide laptops, right? Or who provide mobile phones. Likewise, when you type a keyword, the search engine acts as a distribution system which directs you to different intermediary sites for different types of phrases that you type, right? So the flow of visits between sites must be understood by the marketer in this sector. So, and what is the duty of a marketer here? They have an idea about how this flow of visits between different sites happen when it comes to a customer. Right? What sort of sites appear first, or what sort of phrases do customers type most, and when they type those kinds of phrases, what sort of websites or intermediary pages that they get directed to. Likewise, a marketer has to have a very good idea about how the customer gets directed in between these different sites, different links, and different phrases, keywords, right? Then moving on, I hope that's clear to you. So if at any point something is not clear to you, please either unmute yourself and raise your question, or please put it on the chat, right? All right. So major online players such as Facebook, Google, and Salesforce have developed their own infrastructure or online market ecosystem. Now, this is a new concept that we are introducing. What do you mean by an online market ecosystem? Any idea? What do you mean by market ecosystem? Yes. So what do you mean by an ecosystem? Forget the market part. What do you mean by an ecosystem? Ecosystem එකක් කියන්නේ මොකක්ද? Yes. Anyone having an idea? So are you living in an ecosystem? Are we living in an ecosystem? Yes, right? So if we take the biological ecosystem, what do? We coexist, right? Different types of living species, they coexist within the ecosystem. If we take a forest, or even if we take something like a fish tank, right? It's an ecosystem, right? So in a market also, it is more or less the same, right? So what we refer to as a market ecosystem is, when it comes to an online context, it is actually a network of different sites, right? Which create a neighborhood around different industries, different websites, different brands, different products, and different people, right? Different topics. There is a neighborhood that is created around these different industries, websites, brands, products, and so on, right? And there are different stakeholders and different parties which participate in the online market ecosystem. There might be your consumers, your suppliers, the intermediary parties, right? There might be journalists, right? There are so many people who involve within your online market ecosystem, right? So around these different types of sites, a neighborhood is being created, right? Just like the neighborhood that you find around your house, right? On a market also, online market also, around these different players, a neighborhood is being created, right? So we call such a setting an online market ecosystem. So this point explains that online players such as Facebook, Google, and Salesforce, they have their own online market ecosystem. Now, for example, Facebook, they have their own APIs which enables different site owners or different intermediaries to incorporate the Facebook activity of their consumers or the Facebook users into their own sites, right? To integrate between different sites, right? So Facebook has developed such APIs which facilitate this intermediation between different sites, right? So that the Facebook activity can be linked to their own home pages, their own company websites, and so on, right? And also Google, they have what? They have the Android platform, the mobile platform, and through that, different types of applications have been developed to facilitate the interaction between Google and these Android-based mobiles, for example, right? There are Android supporting apps, right? Which are only supporting for Android sometimes. So in this Google created a market ecosystem. These app developers, right, and these mobile platforms and all these Android platforms, they coexist, right? So likewise, there are different players we find within this ecosystem. And so I hope that is clear to you. The concept of online market ecosystem is clear to you, right? So here, this has been further explained. Uh, Online market ecosystem which connects websites through data exchange, giving opportunities to enhance the customer experience and extend their reach and influence. So like I mentioned earlier, now these companies such as Facebook and Google, through these market ecosystems which they have facilitated, it facilitates or it enables data interchange between different websites, different retail sites, and the Facebook app, for example. Right? So through that, if it's for example online retailer, through this Facebook enabled APIs, right? The APIs that have been enabled by Facebook, they can increase the reach, they can increase the customer base, right, through the social media sites, right? And also it gives them opportunities to enhance the customer experience. It facilitates product reviews, right, and then sharing their experiences, right, and spreading the word about the product, right? So likewise, it facilitates the customer experience and also extend the reach. And also it's helpful for organizations to influence their customers more, right, when they integrate these different types of APIs that have been enabled by Facebook, right? So moving on, analyzing the impact of different ecosystems on online consumer behavior or customer journeys is today as important as observing their physical behavior in the real world. So that is quite self-explanatory, I think. So here the point says, how if an organization is able to analyze the impact of different online ecosystems, right, or how the consumer behavior or the customer journey happens within these ecosystems, if an organization is able to analyze it, right, it is as important as analyzing the physical behavior in the real world. Now in the physical world, you already know what happens, right? So how do marketers gain information? They do consumer surveys. Sometimes they visit certain marketplaces and analyze the consumer behavior, right? There are different techniques that organizations use when it comes to studying their marketplace or analyzing their marketplace, right? They sometimes give questionnaires to consumers, right? They sometimes try to observe the behavior. So likewise, in the same way, the online ecosystem also, studying the online ecosystem is also very, very important when it comes to the current context, due to the reasons which we have mentioned earlier, right? So I hope that is clear to all of you. So any questions so far from what we have decided, which we have discussed? Now we have talked about the concept of strategic agility, right? And then we have started discussing about the process for online marketplace analysis, right? Then we have introduced a new concept called online market ecosystem to you, right? And then now we are coming to location of trading in the marketplace, a new subtopic that we are going to look at, right? So, so far, any doubts or anything which is not clear, you can raise your questions. So there is silence, no questions it seems. So either you have understood everything or you have understood nothing. So I hope it's the former one, right? I hope you have understood what I have explained. But if not, like I mentioned at the beginning, please feel free to send them, right? Right. So now we move on to location of trading in the marketplace. Right. So while traditional marketplaces have a physical location, an internet-based market has no physical presence. That you all understand, right? An internet-based market, it doesn't have any physical location. It's a virtual location, right? It is a virtual marketplace or electronic marketplace. It does not have a physical location. It has a digital presence. This has implications for the way in which the relationships between different actors in the marketplace occur. Now, this concept of internet-based market, right, it changes the traditional relationships between different actors in the marketplace. Unlike in the traditional context, right, when you are acting on a virtual marketplace, it has an impact in the way in which how different people within this marketplace interact with each other. Right? So there's a difference in the way how different players or different actors in an online marketplace or an internet marketplace interact with each other. Right? So now we are going to have a look at that. Right? The new electronic marketplace has many alternative virtual locations where an organization needs to position itself to communicate and sell to its customers. Right? So now you might think that in a virtual marketplace or in an internet-based marketplace, there are no many options for an organization to position themselves, just like in a traditional market. Right? In a traditional marketplace, there are many different ways in how you can position yourselves and reach out to your consumers. But when it comes to electronic marketplace also, still a business organization can find many different alternative virtual or online locations which facilitates them to position themselves in this online environment and in order to communicate with their customers and to sell to their customers, right? So managers need to understand the relative importance of different types of sites and consumer and business interactions and information flows. So what should the managers do at this point? If you're operating in an online environment or if you're doing a business which is in the virtual environment, right, in the virtual marketplace, then those managers need to have a very good understanding about the relative importance of different types of sites and consumer and business interactions. What sort of different sites are present in this marketplace which we are taking part in, or in this marketplace which we are participating in, right? What sort of consumer and business interactions are happening, right? Who are the competitor sites that are present around our marketplace? How do our consumers interact with these different sites or different our competitors or different intermediaries that are available in this online marketplace? So likewise, managers need to study this very carefully and understand the importance of each of these factors, right? So in this section, we will review how marketplace channel structures, location of trading, and multi-channel marketing models can be assessed to inform digital business strategy. So in this particular section today, we are going to look at how marketplace channel structures. We will talk about what a channel is in the coming slides. So we will look at how this marketplace channel structures and the location of trading in an online environment and different multi-channel marketing models that can be used in an online environment can be studied in order to influence or help our digital business strategy, right? Or in order to inform our digital business strategy. So finally, we will review commercial arrangements for transactions, right? So we hope to discuss all these in this particular section, right? Okay, so now review of market channel structures. Now I mentioned earlier that there are different options or different virtual locations that a business can operate in when it comes to online environment. Now we are going to review different market channel structures. So what do you mean by a channel structure? So the first point says, marketplace channel structures describe the way a manufacturer or selling organization delivers products and services to its customers. So I think that's quite simple to understand. So what do you mean by a channel structure? A channel structure describes the way how a manufacturer or a selling organization, right, delivers products and services to its customers. Different options that they use to deliver these products and services to its customers. Right? The typical channel structures between business organizations and consumers are shown in figure 2.6. Now, if we move on to figure 2.6, here you can see different types of channel structures that business organizations can use in order to reach out to their consumers. Right? So these customers can be consumer customers or business customers, right? Ones who are end consumers of your products and services, or business customers who might further process or who might buy from you and use it for a commercial purpose of that, something like that nature, and so on, right? So here there can be business to consumer transactions, which are indicated through this green arrow, and the blue arrow indicates interactions or transactions that happen between business to business, right? Likewise, here you can see there are many different channel chains or many different options that the organization can choose in order to deliver these products and services to their consumers, right? So distribution channel will consist of one or more intermediaries such as wholesalers and retailers, or can have direct relationships with businesses or customers. So if you look at this figure again, now sometimes an organization or a distribution channel can have one or more intermediaries such as wholesalers or retailers. Now if we come here, now this organization, they can have one or even more channel partners or intermediaries which interact with them within this channel chain, right? There can be wholesalers in between, or there can be retailers in between. So in the previous lecture also we showed you a diagram which shows these different types of intermediaries or different types of middlemen that an organization can have, right? So an organization can either go through these intermediaries, or sometimes organizations have the option of directly reaching their consumer customers or directly reaching their business customers without having to go through a channel partner like a wholesaler or a retailer or a distributor and so on, right? So the relationship between a company and its channel partners, shown in figure 2.6, can be dramatically altered by the opportunities afforded by the internet. So although in the traditional context, we can find these types of different intermediaries, different players, right? In the current context, when it comes to the online environment, right, this relationship between a company and different channel partners can be greatly changed, right, greatly altered by the different opportunities that the internet has presented to us, right? So why does this happen? This occurs because the internet offers a means of bypassing some channel partners. Now here we can see different channel partners. Now the supplying organization can go through a channel partner to supply maybe raw materials or parts to a selling organization. And the selling organization can go through different channel partners to sell the end products or services to their consumers. But because of this internet, certain intermediary parties can be cancelled or can be removed with the opportunities presented by the internet, right? We also call that cutting out the middlemen or bypassing your intermediaries or bypassing your channel partners. All these concepts mean the same thing, right? So this process is known as disintermediation, right? So this process of bypassing some of your channel partners, or bypassing some of your intermediaries is known as disintermediation. So here what you do is essentially you remove certain intermediary parties in your channel chain, right? Also, this is referred to as cutting out the middleman, right? So now these are middlemen in your channel chain, right? So these middlemen can be cut out using the opportunities that are presented by internet, right? So if we look at this next figure, this will be more clearer to you, right? Here we are explaining the disintermediation of a consumer distribution channel, showing the original situation here where the organization is going through a wholesaler, retailer, and finally delivering to the end product to the consumer. And then starting from the producer, because of the internet, you may have the ability of bypassing the wholesaler, directly communicating with the retailer, then moving on to your consumer, or else also this is a disintermediation situation where you have only cut out the wholesaler, right? But here this is a disintermediation situation where you have been able to cut out the wholesaler as well as the retailer, so that the producer can directly supply the goods or services to the consumer themselves, right? So here the original situation in part A, disintermediation in part B and C, right? So I hope that is clear to all of you, right? So that is why here the last point says this process known as disintermediation or cutting out the middleman, which we refer to here in figure 2.7, right? I hope that part is clear to you. Right. So now moving on, the benefits of disintermediation to the producer are clear, right? It is able to remove the sales and infrastructure cost of selling through the channel. So what are the benefits that a business can have by cutting out this middleman, or what are the benefits that a business can have by removing these different intermediary parties or these different channel partners? Now what benefits are there? Yeah. Now if you look at this figure, for instance, now at each of these points, what happens when this product moves from the producer to wholesaler? What happens? Some value addition will happen, and also some cost associated, some cost will be associated with it. Some selling cost, right? Maybe some reworking cost, right? Sometimes reprocessing cost, right? So at each of these stages, there will be an additional cost incurred. So that when it comes to this end consumer, the product is sold at a much higher price than at which it was produced. So of course the producer will keep a margin and sell. But also in addition to that, to this same cost, another additional section of a portion of cost will be added at each of these stages. Right? That is why here this point says it is able to remove the sales and infrastructure cost of selling through the channel. So these additional costs that occur at different channel partners can be removed, right? Sometimes you may have to provide certain facilities for this redistribution work, right? Sometimes reprocessing work in order to selling or marketing or likewise. Different costs that you can have to incur can be cut out if you can bypass these wholesalers, right? Sometimes certain warehousing, right? Logistics, likewise, all these costs can be cut out. Maybe not all of them, but depending on the nature of your business and depending on the nature of the product that you sell, certain costs can be cut out. Right? That is the direct benefit of disintermediation. Right? So I hope you are clear on that point. So moving on, although disintermediation has occurred, right, reintermediation is perhaps a more significant phenomenon resulting from internet-based communications, right? So Although we talk about this concept of disintermediation, also there's this concept called reintermediation, which is perhaps a more significant phenomenon resulting from internet-based communications. Now we mentioned that because of internet-based communication, there is a concept called disintermediation, where you can cut out the middleman, or you can cut out certain channel partners. But that is not the only difference, or that is not the only, let's say, special phenomenon that has occurred because of internet communications. Internet communications have also enabled this concept called reintermediation. So what do you think reintermediation means? You know what disintermediation means? Can you think a moment and tell me what do you think this word reintermediation may mean? Yes? Any idea? No idea. Right. So let's go to this figure 2.8 and see what this concept of reintermediation means.